had, they only went like so deep. Like, I don't know, maybe the best ones went 18 inches. Now they're, programmed to find gold and silver and all this shit, right? And they can go like 6 or 7 feet deep in better ones. And of course, they're not cheap. They're like over $2,000 or something like that. Yeah. See, there's a mine right there. Somebody dug into it.
Yeah, they've got mines all over.
Yeah. Gold.
Mining gold?
Yeah.
It's a gold mine.
And I used to run into these guys that did that for a living. You know what I mean? Because at first I took a geology class. And those guys are in there. You know what I mean? And they get to talk about mining. Of course, it's all like a secret. You know what I mean?
It's like what?
It was like a secret. They don't want to give up where they're finding gold because they don't want you taking the gold. But they work hard to find it and all that shit. I talked to them. I go, look, believe me, I don't really want to know where you're going. I just wonder, can you really make a living doing that? And they go, well, it depends. And it's like gambling. It's such a rush when you find it. It's like, you go up and down in your, whatever, and and it's kind of like anything else. Like if you put enough time and effort into it, yeah, it could pay off. But I was talking, to this old miner, and he was showing me pictures of things that he found. And I said, when you hit like that a good year, how much are you making? And he was saying the best year he had, he sold $140,000 in gold.
Yeah.
And I was telling him, not that isn't a lot of money, but I said, you can basically do that as a building inspector. And he goes, you know what I mean? Like what I do. Like a fucking stupid civil service job, whatever. He goes, oh yeah, that's true. But he goes, but I couldn't be as big, like, I can't, like he confessed. He said, I can't go to work for somebody.
Yeah.
He just, it's just, I've had jobs, and I'm sitting there doing the job, and listening to some fucking bullshit boss and all that, and I'm thinking, fuck, like I'm this close to putting a gun in my head. It's like, it's so fucking miserable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He says, when I'm out mining, he goes, you literally are your own man. You're making your own decisions, and you're either, you live with live with what you got or found or whatever like that. And he goes, I always feel like I'm like, a couple shovels away from hitting it big. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I was talking to him, like I go, so that's what your drive is, right? He goes, oh yeah. He goes, you're right. He goes, I can make a lot more money doing it. The other thing I asked him is, obviously, right, when you're doing that, you're not reporting income, right? And he goes, we don't even want to say that word, the 4-letter word that starts with T.
What?
He said, none of us, even you, want to say the 4-letter word that starts with, the 3-letter word that starts with T, tax. He says, because obviously nobody's doing that. They're all selling minerals and taking, for cash, right?
Yeah.
A lot of them said, if you actually add up how much time or whatever, he goes, we're not much more than minimum wage. You know what I mean? He goes, and you have like really good years, and you have like your typical year, where, you know what I mean? You have really good years. There was this one YouTube channel, this guy was showing people that you could buy sand at Home Depot and collect enough gold out of it to pay for the sand.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he goes, this is true. And he started he bought, I don't know, like a pallet of sand and was running it through his, box and whatever. And he did God. He goes, honest to God, there is gold in here. And he collected it, and it was just about enough to pay for the sand.
So there's gold in sand.
Yeah, he said they're probably collecting that sand somewhere where they had a sand deposit from off of some hills. That's where they're mining the sand, and they're just selling sand. Not realizing they could be sluicing it and collecting gold too at the same time.
Oh, like it was just that sand when you put in that bag.
Well, he's saying Home Depot's mining the sand somewhere close to a river, or once was a river there. That's what his suspicion was. gotta find where the gold is, or the most, you know what I mean. And the hunt is, you know what I mean. Well, finding the gold is a big deal, like, you know what I mean. Also, the miners always go by rivers and stuff where the hills are washing away. So they claim there's gold in the hills, and then when it wears down or whatever, the rivers, it collects in the rivers, and that's where they start. Also, when we were, you know, digging those channels for those storm drains, you could see like where water or silt had washed across there or whatever. And I always ask those guys, "Do you run into like gold nuggets or gold?" And they go, "No." You know, they go, "I've been in those trenches for miles and miles. I never ran into like, you know what I mean, what those miners are saying they're finding."
Yeah.
To this gold mine that closed down and then they pumped it out or whatever, and they gave tours there. And you know, I pointed out, I said, "Look, there's actually gold flakes on the side of these things." And they go, "Yeah, they call that pepperine or something like that, right?" They go, "The problem is there isn't enough gold in those rocks to mine." You know what I mean? Well, you can see gold flakes on the side of the cave, right?
Yeah.
And when I was in the mine, I pointed out, I said, "Do you realize there's like gold flakes? You can see gold on the side of the mine." And they go, "Yeah." They go, they call that peppery. It's a pepper, like, you know what I mean? Somebody like, you know.
Yeah.
And they go, "The thing is, it doesn't weigh enough for them to, you know, for them to mine that.
Yeah.
They have to find a vein or whatever, on and on, which they were chasing at the time." He says, you know, gold is, you have to move a certain amount of ton of, you know, stone. You need a certain amount of gold to make it worth it. And this mine doesn't have that amount.
Yeah.
There's gold still in the mine, it's just not enough to mine. then she was showing us like how loud the equipment was and how they were like banging like with hammers on these metal rods to put dynamite in and blow it up, right? And she was showing us how loud it was. Like she goes, "This is how loud the equipment was." We're gonna whatever turn one on. It was deafening. It was so loud. And she said the miners, after working there for 2 months, had lost their hearing.
Huh.
All of them. Deaf as could be. And she said, at the time, if you went to work at the mine, you made 2.5 times more working there than a regular job in town.
Yeah.
And she said, men were like lining up for the job.
Like what?
Men like lined up for the job they wanted.
Yeah.
You know, even though they knew they were going to go deaf, they still wanted that. You know, make twice as much
Yeah.
money. 2.5 times more. So when they closed the mine, they had all these, of course, lawsuits and everything. You know, people missing in the mine. Because when people died, they just got rid of you. They just said, "Oh, we don't know what happened to them," right? But a lot of people were, you know, basically getting blown up or getting run over by carts and shit and dying, right? And then they just dispose of you. So at the end, there was like all this litigation and suits and everything like that. And what they did is they burned all the records about who they hired and who they were paying, and just, you know, they just got rid of everything. Fuckers out here were fucking working a paving machine.
Huh?
These guys out here paving in this weather. It's like 100 degrees out. They're standing on top of 300-degree asphalt.